Today we're going to take on a little sound design challenge where we just take a bowl of water. You can see me with a bowl of water here and some random kitchen utensils, something that you could find in, an everyday place. And we're gonna make some sounds out of it, some random sounds, and try to come up with a beat just using those sounds. I find doing these challenges is a really nice way to break out of your normal workflow and to come up with some things that you probably otherwise wouldn't have. And of course, we're gonna probably make a mess in the process, but it's part of the fun, right? So what I did was I went through the entire clip of everything that I recorded and I just isolated a few that I thought were really cool. The first thing that really stuck out to me were some of these percussion loops. Got kind of a cool shuffle thing happening. Next, let's make a little kick so we can build out the beat a little bit. And I played this little sound here where I was hitting the bowl that kind of sounds like a kick. So let's start with that. So what I'm gonna do is drag this into a MIDI clip here and see if we can extract kind of a kick sound here. So I started with that little bowl sound of me hitting it with my fist. And then I added a limiter, really controlling the dynamic range of that organic sound. Next is a saturator, of course, and I'm just adding some distortion. And you can see I've got it about halfway dry and halfway wet, just so that we can have some of the original transient poking through, because if you oversaturate it, then it will compress the sound a little bit too much. So a little bit more dirt there. And then I've got this EQ, which is probably the most crucial element of all of this. This is what makes it sound like a kick more than anything else, in my opinion. And it's all about where this high pass filter is. Now, generally, I don't like to use a really steep high pass filter on kicks, but in this case, I made an exception because it adds a little bit of resonance where the cutoff point is, and that's exactly what we want. It's kind of some oomph, and it's at about 48 hertz here, so that right there. And of course, we're also low passing it as well, so we can control some of the higher frequencies that were present as well. And I also have this EQ as well. And we're just taking out some of, there's like this weird group of frequencies here that I wanted to not accentuate so much. But when I take away some stuff in an EQ, I also like to add it back in other areas. And so I'm adding it back in about an octave above where the first cut was. Sort of this stuff here. One other thing that I really like to add in is a drum shaper, which, as you know, shapes the drums, shapes the transients of the drums, but it's super flexible and it's really handy to shape whatever it is that you're working with into whatever you want, right? So in this case, I'm increasing the attack amount. And so what it does is at the very beginning of the sound, it will increase the gain. And if you bring the sustain down after it reaches below a certain threshold, it will turn it all the way off. And I've also got some soft clipping on here as well to add in a little bit more grit. And this is kind of the kick sound that I wanted to work with. And for the snare sound, I have this little piece here. And it sort of sounds like a bell, but I want to find a way to make it sound either like a rim shot or like a meaty snare somehow. So here's kind of the original sound. What I'm going to do is add some saturation here, and it's a lot here. I'm adding 21 decibels of saturation here. You can see that it's pushing past this little line here, which is kind of the non-linear zone. That's what we want. We want to add in we want to expand the harmonics a little bit more to make it a better snare sound in general. But one of my all-time favorite sound design tricks is to add in these resonances here and there. And by the way, don't worry about what the EQ looks like. It's all about what it sounds like. So even though this looks a little bit crazy, we're getting the results that we want, right? So I found this little peak here at about 230 hertz. Which is something that I wanted to accentuate here. And we're also adding in some upper mids and some highs as well. So it's not just so dark sounding. So we've kind of beefed up the sound, then we're gonna add in a limiter here. You can see that the release is really fast, and so we're just controlling like that very first part of the bell hit. And then what happens is once we shorten this a little bit, this is what it sounds like. It sounds more like a snare, right? Once you make like a snare like this, but it's not quite there yet, one thing I really like to do is to duplicate it and then basically raise it by an octave. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to press Command T and make a new audio track, and then I'm going to set the input to listen to our current snare as it stands. So now we've got an imprint of our previous snare with all the effects on it. And so now what happens is once I raise the pitch, it's added a whole nother element into the mix here. So now I've added some saturation, a little bit of high pass and low passing around 6K and 400 hertz, and a little bit more limiting with some saturation in there. Kind of a similar thing that we did to the original snare, but now it'll sound a little bit more like this. So now for some further processing, what I did was I put it into a group by pressing Command G, these snares here, and we're adding in like basically a lot of this peak here at about 400 hertz. So I'm accentuating that a little bit more and then adding a little bit of a low pass filter at 10K just to darken it, just the highest parts a little bit, because you have to be careful about those with organic sounds like this that you pitch up because they'll have a lot of high-end information. And then of course the drum shaper, just to add a little bit more punch. Now there's also this other sound that I heard too. It's kind of like where I was hitting the spatulas, I believe. I think there's some cool sounds in here. I want to isolate a couple of those and make a little loop out of it. So basically I took those sounds and warped them so that they're on beat a little bit more, and it sounds like this. Which is really cool, the way that the water kind of bends the pitch of the hat up and down. Now again, I've added in a limiter here just to help control some of the peaks of the sound, some saturation. Add some more harmonics there. And then I've also added in kind of a high pass and low pass to control where some of the frequency information is in the EQ. And now there's also like this really high-pitched unpleasantness about the spatula sound when I'm hitting it inside of the water. So I added Soothe here, which is a really nice plugin to kind of control some of the frequencies that you don't love. I'm a little bit sparing about this plugin because it can easily be a little bit too much and make things sound really unnatural. But in this case, I think it works. So if I just listen to what it's controlling. Yeah, kind of those harsh highs. Yeah. And then with the beat, it sounds like this. Yeah, this is sounding pretty cool. And there's a couple more sounds that I want to add in. There's like this kind of a weird bubble sound. Yeah, these three sounds for sure. Let's see if we can find a place for them in the loop just to make the drums a little bit more wet sounding. So next, let's work on some of the musical elements. And I think I already have an idea for what I want to do for the bass sound. One of my favorite things to do is to use the Wavetable synth in Ableton. You basically just drag any sound into it and you can synthesize a wavetable out of it. And I think we can do a lot with some of these water sounds here. So if I press Command-Shift-T and make a new MIDI track and then open up Wavetable, we can pick any one of these sounds to do this with. Maybe this sound. Yeah. So let's drag this sound into Wavetable and see if we can make a cool sound out of this. But check out what you can do just dragging a simple sound like this already into Wavetable. I kind of am feeling like we should do like a filter envelope. So it's kind of like, make it a little bit more West Coast. So what I'm gonna do here is go to the matrix and we're gonna click frequency and it'll automatically add in a new frequency column so we can have either the amplitude, the envelope, or an LFO control the frequency. So in this case, we want an envelope for the frequency because we want it to kind of go like that. If we want to change some of the aspects of the mod sources, we can head over to the mod sources tab. And in this case, we're using envelope 2. And we can change the envelope a little bit. Another cool thing to play around with too is the position of the wavetable. So if you add in an envelope to this, it'll cycle through the wavetable. So that's kind of what I did here with this sound. You can see it kind of slowly goes back to the original position. So let's see if we can come up with a bass line with this sound here. Actually, the real key to this sound is the resonance on the filter. Instead of using the clean filter, I really like to use OSR or any of these other analog style filters because when you increase the resonances, it just tends to sound a little bit more pleasing to the ear instead of kind of harsh and, well, resonant. So now let's get some chords that will complement that bass line a little bit. There's this other kind of bell sound that we could use that's similar to the bass. Yeah, this one here. And I think we could extract like some sort of a bell sound out of it. So what I'm gonna do is drag this to a new sampler on a new MIDI track here. See if we can come up with something with this. So when I play this really low C note, I can hear like a tone coming about. So what I'm gonna do is get an EQ here. We're gonna zone it, or hone in rather, on the tone. So now what I'm going to do is create a new audio track and record in this tone for this particular key and then make a new instrument out of it. So if I freeze this track and then drag this into our audio track and mute it, then what we can do is press Command-Shift-T and basically drag in our recorded track into an instrument here, which is actually kind of a cool bell sound. So what I decided to do here was high pass it to about 800 hertz or so, and then loop this last part of the waveform so that we can get a better tail out of it, especially with the higher notes. Which sounds pretty nice actually. And then just add in a little bit of compression here. Take off some of the initial bite of the sound, and then use this plugin that I continue to come back to, which is Arturia's like Juno 6 chorus plugin. It really reminds me of the sound of like a harmonic on a guitar. So let's see if we can add this somewhere in the beat. Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. Kind of dark and mysterious West Coast sounding. I kind of want to add in this instrument like an octave up, but the same instrument, because the higher notes sound different. And I think this could be also a cool texture to add in there somewhere. Maybe even with some delay too. Let's see what that sounds like. And I think only one other thing I want to add to complete this is like a real piano sound, but I'm not going to try to make a real piano out of our water sounds. I just want to add in a real one because, you know, it's okay to not add everything from the original recording, and you can use a real piano sound if you want to like fill it out a little bit. Man, And now it's just like all the raw elements are there. We just need to arrange it and copy and paste some of the sections and take away some of the elements here. Man, I don't know about you guys, but I felt like the real winner in this entire challenge was the perc loop that I made out of the spatula, like dipping in and out of the water and changing the pitch. I love that. I'm gonna use that like on more songs because I just love how it sounds so much. But I hope this was a really interesting exercise for you guys to take a look at. And again, all of these sounds are gonna be yours forever and yours alone, which is really cool. It's a nice way to separate yourself out from everybody else by just using sounds that you record yourself. And there's so many tools out there, like even inside just your DAW, to transform the sounds from one thing into another. And next thing you know, you're getting creative and making a whole beat out of it. So what should I make a beat out of next? Let us know down in the comments below. And until next time, happy music making, and we'll see you in the next video. Peace.